Hey guys, so today I kind of wanted to talk to you about some of my absolute favorite standalone. I don't tend to read a lot of standalone books. I gravitate towards series probably because I read mostly like epic fantasy, and that tends to be big long series like Stormlight, Wheel of Time, Mistborn. Like I gravitate towards those, but I still really enjoy a well done standalone. And if I find one that like hooks me and gives me like this complete story in just one book, then I am sold and I love it because it's nice and condensed and done, and I don't have to worry about when is book 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 coming out. Like I can just be like, all right, this whole condensed story and it's one and done and I'm happy. So today I want to show you some of my favorites that are all standalone. The first one is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is technically a standalone. It is currently a standalone. Even though it fits into the Cosmere universe, it is still able to be read completely on its own. You don't need anything else, anything before, after. It completely stands on its own. It has been said that there may be a sequel at some point, but it's not necessary. So it's a full story, and you get it and you love it and it's done. But this is about these two sisters. The older sister is promised to this other kingdom, and she is supposed to become the bride of this god king. Well, the father decides that he doesn't like that. That like last minute he likes his older daughter too much to send her over there. So he sends his youngest daughter instead, who was not trained, has no idea what's going on. Like the older sister is like been trained in politics her whole life, and like the younger sister is like this free spirit, like has never had any real like rules. So like it's like a whole shock, and it's very political in nature. We follow the two sisters, and then we also follow one of the gods over in this other kingdom, and it's just so much political intrigue in this story. And I love it. It's wonderful standalone, but it's also great if you read the rest of the Cosmere, because you can see with Stormlight Archive specifically, you can start to see how little things fit in, like how the little Easter eggs. So that's really, really exciting. But also, this is a great place to start with Sanderson if you have not read Sanderson. I think Warbreaker is a great starting point for Sanderson as well. Another book that I loved this year that is a standalone is Dark Matter. This is a sci-fi thriller, and I wouldn't have read this if it wouldn't have been my Secret Santa book for World Hoppers. This was Jade from Bedtime Bookworm's favorite book, and she was my Secret Santa, so I read her favorite book for my reading vlog. And I ended up really, really liking it. If you want to see my full thoughts on it, you can watch that reading vlog. I go into details on what I liked, what I didn't like. No spoilers until the very end, but just know this is a crazy sci-fi thriller that is just super intriguing. Next, we have An Unkindness of Magicians. This, again, is rumored to be having a sequel come out, but I don't think it's necessary. The story is wrapped up beautifully, so I don't really know where they're gonna go for a sequel, but as of right now, this is a lovely, lovely standalone. And we are following Sydney, who is this magician from just kind of out of nowhere, and she shows up to enter this magical competition to try to basically like bring down the rest of the magical world. And like, it's such a good book. There's a lot that I love in this. It's a lot of like cost of magic, which is something that I appreciate seeing when magic has a cost, where you can't just like do magic willy-nilly. Like there's like a physical cost to it, and I really like that aspect of this book. I have another full review. It is one of my first reviews on this channel, so if you watch it, like, be warned, like it's something. But I do have a full review of this book up, and I will link it for you in case you want to dive that deep. And of course, I have Addie LaRue. This made it to my top books of 2020. It is a standalone by V.E. Schwab, and we are following a girl named Addie in like 17th century France who basically decides that she doesn't want to just get married and have babies and die. So she runs off into the woods and calls to the gods, and the one who answers is the darkness, basically, and he makes her a deal. You can live forever, but no one will remember you. And it is like her story through the ages, and it is just beautiful. I loved this. I cried. It touched my heart. I just really enjoyed this book. If you want to see again a full review, I've got that for you. Next up, another one that I have a full review for. This is like becoming a trend, and that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Again, this is like a beautiful, whimsical story that doesn't take itself too seriously. It is a story inside a story. There's a magical library, and we follow our main character, Zachary, who one day at college finds this book that's got no author, no markings. He starts to read it and notices that his story is in this book. So he starts investigating, and that leads to a whole world that he had no idea existed. And this is, like I said, whimsical and lyrical and beautiful. And there's a lot of metaphors and allegory, and it's just one of those books that you have to like turn your literal brain off and just read it and enjoy it. Because there's some things that are like, what? Just roll with it. Just roll with it and enjoy it and love it, and it's beautiful. So this is one I highly recommend. All right, next is another one that I absolutely loved. I read it this year. I mentioned this in a books that weren't quite my favorites video, and that is Born by Jeff Vandermeer. This book is so weird. Like, there's no better way to describe this book other than weird. It is new weird sci-fi. Like, that is the genre. And it is freaking fantastic. And I can't wait to read more from Vandermeer, because this is my first of his books, and now I have a couple others on my shelves I need to get to. But this book, we follow Rachel, who is a scavenger in this like post-apocalyptic world, and she finds this like sea creature looking anemone thing, and she brings it home, and it ends up being sentient, and it is crazy. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, so go watch my full review where I like had notes and thoughts and wrapped stuff up correctly. But this is definitely one of my favorite standalones, and I'm super excited to read more from this author. Next, we also have another really cool standalone, and that is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. This is a magical realism book set in our world, and like the magic system is very loose. It's not very like defined, and the magic is actually not the most important part of this book. It is also like an investigation into a like murder mystery at a magic school. So it's so much more about relationships and this murder mystery than it is the actual like magic school aspect of it. We follow our main character, Ivy, who is a private investigator, and her twin sister, who is a teacher at this magical school. So Ivy is not magical, and her twin sister is. So that kind of causes some strife in their relationship. But this is just a really, really good story, and I really recommend picking this one up. And finally, one of my absolute favorite books of the year, and that is House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is the most precious, warm hug of a book that you can read, and it is a standalone. It is something that I recommend for everyone. I literally finished this the last day of December, and I already want to reread it because it was that good. We follow Linus, who is like a 40-year-old dude with nothing really special going on in his life. He's a social worker, and he visits these orphanages for magical children, and he's just very by the book, rule follower, He's very white bread, boring, and then he gets the call that he is to spend a month at this one very special orphanage for very special magical children and report back. And that kind of changes the course of everything. And I just love the kids. I love the master of the orphanage. I love Linus. Like, all the characters just are the sweetest. So this is one I would recommend to everybody and one of my favorite books of the year. All right, well, that was some of my favorite standalone books, and hopefully you enjoyed this. It was really fun to pick out these books because, like I said, I don't normally read standalones. I gravitate towards series, but it's really fun going kind of outside that comfort zone every once in a while. All right, well, thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Jessie, and I will see you next time. Bye.